Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Blue Dragon 5 here.
And I'm Lazerdude.
And, congratulations, you made it to the end of our unofficial Jim Carrey theme month. That's right, folks. The month of April, I mean, it's kind of a recent thing we've been doing. We like to kind of celebrate Jim Carrey in the month of April because, he's, the original fool, one could say. The fool in the grandest sense of the word, So, we've covered a grand variety of Jim Carrey movies this year. This month we've covered Liar Liar. We covered the Cable Guy, and me, myself, and Irene. So we felt we wanted like the first round we did this last year. We ended on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So we wanted to end on kind of like another big kind of swing for Jim Carrey, kind of like the big, kind of some dramatic range. I mean, we did kind of we somewhat lucked into this. It was kind of intentional in terms of our selection process, but we did kind of notice there's a bit of a through line that's gone through this year's selections for us. We're basically, we have we've had kind of like two through lines. Like one is like Jim Carrey rebelling against Ace Ventura 2, which is in part one of the reasons we didn't cover Ace Ventura 2. But it's also again like Jim Carrey kind of hitting that sweet spot between the comedy and the pathos and kind of demonstrating range. And like for example, Liar Liar was I feel like kind of the underrated perfected version of like it was kind of Jim Carrey able to demonstrate range, and not a lot of people kind of note the movie for that. But we had like great pathos mixed in with the comic, a great balance. And Cable Guy, we saw kind of the unsuccessful version of kind of what Liar Liar ultimately did. Essentially, where we show there's a bit of comedy and there's also we're going for the range there. And then me, myself, and Irene kind of as our Dumb and Dumber equivalent with the same directing team on it. And again, just going for like again, kind of the commercially, Jim Carrey is the big, commercially successful name that he had become at that point in time, and this is debatably one of the biggest high points in Jim Carrey's career in terms of like at least the dramatic work that he's done. So Truman Show is big. I've done a lot of the talking so far, so I'm going to ask. Laser, how do you feel about the Truman Show before I kind of go into my thoughts
I
specifically on the movie?
I love the Truman Show. It's in my top 10 if not top 5 favorite films. It's one of my just favorite all-time movie experiences because just to give you a little bit of background, I came in on the perfect time to watch this movie. Cuz like I remember Roger Ebert when he reviewed this movie, he was pissed off at all the advertising and the thing for the movie itself gave away that it was a show. He thought it'd be more impactful if they just, played it out but never told you that it was a television show. But I basically got to experience that because I walked in on my brother and a few of his friends watching this movie. The moment uh, uh, the spotlight fell from the sky, so I never saw the preamble. And I even asked, like, "What is this?" And my brother kind of says, "He's on a TV show or something." I'm like, "So he's an actor? Like what?" And I just got to experience the whole movie unfold and see it through basically the eyes of Truman. And so after we started talking about all the different things about it, we were just so excited about the way the movie had presented itself. We were just talking. We talked so much about how much we loved it. We're like, you know what? Let's just watch it again. And we watched it again. I've never done that in my entire life, except for maybe when I was a toddler. Like play it again, like something like that. But I've never done that in my entire life. Where after seeing the movie fully once, we just started it over and watched it again, and it was truly one of my most memorable viewing experiences. And just this the way the movie has presents itself and gives it to you, it's such a unique because it's really telling two different stories. On the one hand, there is the story of what it is. It's a television show about this guy who doesn't know he's on a television show in his life. But that's not Truman's story for the most part because he has no idea that he's on a TV show. For him, it's just a need to escape, a need to leave, a need to just branch out and do something on his own and being forced to be stuck into this one hole that he doesn't want to be in. I always viewed the parallels between this movie and It's a Wonderful Life, where it was like if A Wonderful Life was manufactured to keep George Bailey in Bedford Falls. That's
Hmm.
basically how I viewed it, because like in The Wonderful Life he keeps on doing the right thing and that's what gets him stuck, but here it's like the world is forcing him to be stuck in this place. And so yeah, I love Jim Carrey's performance. I love the world, I love the storytelling, I just love everything about it.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention, It's a Wonderful Life because Jim Carrey, one of his influences, he loves Jimmy Stewart, and he does bring a little bit of that here for sure. I don't think that's by accident.
No, absolutely. The performance obviously is toned down because he doesn't talk to anybody through his butt cheeks or anything like that. But more than that, it's like his
Well, there
comedic
is that one scene
style.
where he's gardening.
Fair enough, fair enough. But he didn't know where the camera was in that scene. That was a choice by the producers to go to camera 69 or whatever. Whatever.
Oh God.
That was their choice. That was their choice to do that one. Anyways, but yeah, obviously he's more toned down, but his comedy comes across as less over the top. Then it just sounds like a guy that's trying to tell a joke or to be funny or to be humorous or to be flirtatious in some scenes. It's not like a comedic actor doing everything to get a laugh. It's more natural.
Yeah. So with the Truman Show, so I think it's a very special Jim Carrey movie. I think it becomes more fascinating over time. The big thing I had with the Truman Show was I did not see it in theaters, but what I had was TBS. TBS used to play this movie all the time. They made like a big deal of that. I don't know if you remember or not.
I
But
grew up with two channels, CBC and CTV, so no.
yeah. Okay, well, imagine if you will, you had a network that it's kind of like kind of what a TBS does, don't you? Basically they get they write the movies and they put sitcoms, and basically there's a channel entirely comprised of reruns. Traditionally, is what TBS is. Point being, TBS, they this movie all the time, would come on, and when I was a kid, and they mismarketed the heck out of it in that if you were to go in fresh, like for example, the big kind of runner I have is I love the Mask. I was obsessed with the Mask, so that's really where that was
Mhm.
my in for Jim Carrey, and then that kind of led me down the rabbit hole, and I was like, oh man, I want to see a new Jim Carrey movie, and I would kind of go to all these other different ones that he did, and of course I'd eventually end up at the Truman Show, but via TBS, like, oh my god, the Jim Carrey movie I haven't seen before. Basically, the big sell was like they marketed like, and I presume the movie itself was marketed as this as well. But regardless, just the marketing was it's a Jim Carrey comedy. When really it's not at all. Where it's like, for example, the
No.
one clip that they use. Okay, here's what they used. Okay, it's like okay, there's Truman Burbank, and he's like doing the whole like good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and then we cut to the light falls, and then here's the here's the rule of comedy in the marketing. Okay, we have the scene where he's trying to explain to Marlon, like what's going on. He's just like, did anyone react? Like that's your Jim Carrey comedy. Those three scenes, Jim Carrey comedy.
Oh man.
So that's what
I was just
TBS.
thinking about this when we went on. I was like, what would you say is the funniest moment in this scene? Like Truman is amusing and humorous, but there's not really laugh out loud moments. The most I can think of is like him talking to the mirror. Like those scenes are objectively funny, but
Yeah.
beyond that, there's not a lot.
Well, I mean, for example, that's like genuinely just kind of like honestly funny, and then you have like like the scene where he is going. It's kind of dark and funny when he's in the car with Meryl.
It's funny, but it's also it's one of those things where like we're laughing, but we're also like, oh my gosh, he's losing it. He's at
I
the
mean,
end of
there are
the rope.
jokes in the movie for sure, but the jokes aren't really like him being funny. There's around like his situation we the audience know, and he's kind of like picking up on it.
think that sign is over exaggerated. The road is on fire out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Anyway, so that's the thing. So the movie, I feel, TBS mismarketing this is like a Jim Carrey comedy. It seemed very, very fitting just for like what the point of the movie is. Where media is kind of saying one thing when and the reality is something completely different. So the movie ultimately is like it's the relationship of us to the medium of television. I guess broadly is entertainment in general. This is like the era of the this predates this, but again, this is like growing up in the era of like the Joe Schmo show. It's like the burgeoning reality TV, and again, another interesting parallel with kind of the movies that we've selected this go around is you have this movie and you have the Cable Guy, two movies that have interesting similar themes in terms of just kind of like the dangers of a media based or media obsessed culture.
Hmm.
However, Cable Guy is more directed on. It's kind of like an inverse. I kind of look at it that way, where Cable Guy is like all the media. We're seeing it through one example of the obsession, and Truman Show we invert it, where everyone is kind of like media obsessed about Truman.
Right, yeah. No,
So
that's an interesting, parallel where like his character in Cable Guy is unhinged because of his obsession with television, and here he is the obsession. Yeah.
yeah. So the point being, like Cable Guy saw this coming, and this is basically what he saw coming. So they kind of also go hand in hand like that. So anyway, so Truman Show inverting this and just kind of having the meta context of Truman basically, and Laser, you've seen the Jim and Andy documentary, right?
I did.
Yeah. So the Jim and Andy documentary, I love the way in which they handle the footage with the Truman Show, where it really hits on the point where the idea is like Jim Carrey does put a little bit of himself in each of these movies, and the Truman Show. I think the big reason the Truman Show really endures and really has the kind of that spark about it is that there is the meta contextual element of Truman is kind of how Jim Carrey feels. That's kind of like how he felt in the groundswell of like he's become like a recognizable name, like a household name and everything. That's kind of like, it's basically Jim Carrey dealing with fame is the Truman Show, which I always really love that element of the movie looking back on it years later. So like it's Jim Carrey's worst fear is being put in a box, which is again with the whole Ace Ventura 2 thing, where he doesn't want to just be like the guy who
Yeah.
talks to his butt for the rest of his life. He's put in a box, which we literalize here. We literally put him in a box.
Yeah.
There's actually been some great fan art over. Not well, I guess I forget how official they ever made this. People have done like art posters of the Truman Show. Where it's like him climbing out of the television. I forget if like that was like a I don't know like Criterion thing or something. Where,
Like from The Ring, he's just like, don't
yeah,
mind me, just
pretty
trying to
much,
get out.
pretty much. But it's good symbolism though, because it's accurate. It's what he's trying to do.
Yeah. I was just thinking about. I'm probably jumping ahead of whatever you want to talk about. But I was just thinking. I want to say this point before I forget about it. I was thinking about Truman throughout this entire experience on television. He isn't acting, right?
True.
He is just the real person who's dealing with whatever is in his world that they've made for him.
Mm-hmm.
Until his dad comes back at the end. And that's the moment where we later realize that he's figured it out, that he's on a television show.
Yeah.
And that's the moment he starts acting. And the moment he starts acting, we don't focus on him anymore and we go to the behind the scenes.
It's brilliant, right?
Yeah. It's like
Pretty good.
the moment that he stops being genuine, we stop focusing on him and we start
Yeah.
going to the behind the scenes stuff. I never even really thought about that way until now. It's just like the movie is just filled with such brilliant writing and stuff like that. And I love how the movie never holds your hands with certain things. It's just like you might think, oh, why is the skylight falling? Or why did the rain fall in just one place? It doesn't say, oh, the people behind the scenes have become incompetent or complacent, or the wear and tear of this facility is, starting to show its age. It doesn't say any of that, but you can take those conclusions from the events that are happening.
Yeah.
Why the rain only went over Truman?
I mean, you
Somebody
gotta
messed
remember
up in the studio, or some equipment went faulty.
yeah. I mean, you gotta remember in television, there are like guffaws and just like like continuity errors and like and also like the result of complacency or accidents and stuff that would
Yeah,
happen. But I love the fact that Truman is now noticing the little things since we had literally the sky falling.
yeah,
But again, we'll get there. It's real quick. So around things out. I gotta get into some background here. So okay, I love seeing Truman's arc in kind of this twilight zone of a premise, that he's going through, and the world building is very interesting. Again, I love Kristoff's God complex, which we'll get to. It holds up. It just holds up very well, like a lot of the Jim Carrey films have kind of ultimately done for us here. So not all, but most. So let me get into some background here, like how the heck we get this movie in the first place, and then we'll read some
mm,
comments. Um, so the script. So this all started with a script written by Andrew Niccol. Now Andrew Niccol, he initially, he wanted to direct this. This is the guy who brought us Gattaca. He both directed and wrote Gattaca. You remember Gattaca, don't
oh,
you?
oh yeah, no, I know Gattaca.
Yeah, we all remember Gattaca from school. But
No school, so no.
yeah, so like originally, I think the working title was like the Malcolm Show. So it was going to be, he wanted to direct. The studio but didn't want him to. They were searching for directors. They ended up on Peter Weir, who loved the script. Peter Weir, he was the man who brought us Dead Poet Society. Rob Williams, that guy. So originally, Nichols' script was really good, but it did skew a little dark, and the setting was more sci-fi. For again, like the futuristic component, how the heck could we have a facility that would do all this?
Mm,
So there was more of a sci-fi component. Basically, what Weir did is he infused some lightness and kind of adjusted the setting to be a little bit more real world, like literally down to earth. It just happens to be at the world's largest sound stage on the planet, but it wasn't like on
yeah,
another planet. Mainly, this was done because he made basically Weir made a very fair point of like it'd be if it's too sad, why would people watch it 24/7? Like it's just really like kind of sad and like we're torturing the poor guy while he's like under in a
yeah,
glass dome essentially. So Weir wanted Jim Carrey very much for this, and to the point where they actually waited for him. Like Jim Carrey was busy in '95, and this movie comes out in '98, so they had to basically stall until '97 for him. So this was, they held out for him. They really wanted him. And Jim Carrey was he was concerned that being paired with like a director of this note, the man who did Dead Poet Society, he might
yeah,
not be able to be as free reined with his improvisations and being able to play around with the material like he does. If you're like, how much is the director going to be in service of the vision versus me being able to do
yeah.
what
But
I
if
do?
you worked on a film with Robin Williams, you know that the guy's probably going to let some things slide.
Yep. So yeah, it's the point that Jim Carrey was in good hands. That got assured, and that's how we get stuff like the soap on the mirror gag at the end. Like that's giving him free reign. So they shot in Seaside, Florida. Now this is like basically kind of like the Epcot, retirement community of tomorrow kind of like idea of Florida, where they have like these communities where they're built essentially to be like these Shangri-Las, very kind of like so.
Mm,
It was such an artificial. Yeah, it was like a nice. It was like the most safe suburb you could see, and it felt like, oh man, this is perfect. And they had the town did not want them to shoot there, but they basically did this really clever move. Like, hey, we will hire you a lawyer because we're not going to pay you $5 million like you want us to. We're going to hire a lawyer. You will sort out all the terms that you want. So they really nailed that down. Um, Krista,
it was a good choice because I actually, until you just said that, I thought it was a set. It looks like a set. So yeah, great scouting for whoever did that.
I'm sorry, what?
Huh?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Laser? I didn't hear that last part.
Oh, sorry. I was saying how they did a good job. It was a great location to choose from because I thought it was a set. I thought it was like, somebody made a set and so yeah, it just felt like very artificial looking. And so yeah, great scouting location for whoever picked it out. That was great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, what's interesting with Kristoff? They actually originally it was Dennis Hopper. They had to recast him because he bowed out at the last minute.
Oh, well, I mean, they got the right guy.
Yes. Okay, so end of the day, movie's very well received. Of course, leads to but it actually became kind of this thing where we have like the Truman Show. We could enter the lexicon as like people who thought their like cameras were following them in their real lives became like an actual like psychological like shorthand, like the Truman Show delusion, apparently.
You know, I had that a little bit. Not like diagnosable, but I would after watching the Truman Show, I would look in the mirror and like try to call the bluff of the producer and be like, "I know what's going on here. You can stop the whole charade." Like I literally would talk to the mirror like I knew what was going on and everything. So, uh, yeah, I even had that a little bit for a while.
Yeah, it was popular, and again leads to kind of getting like the Joe Schmo show and all this kind of things. And also years later, again, Tegan and I we love this show. It's called Jury Duty. Essentially, have one real guy in kind of a manufactured, like kind of like entirely show setting, but he doesn't know it, and it was great. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
like I said, I'm going to read some comments here, and then we're going to get into the conversation here. Okay, let's see. So, Cookie as anime fan, again, with the dissenting opinion as per usual. The Truman Show is a film that I respect more than I like. I respect that it feels like it tried to have a unique tone and premise. However, I feel like it lacks the normal humor and the fun of Jim Carrey. It's a point. It's.
Wow.
I mean, that's
Not
the thing.
trying to be a Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's kind of a movie that Jim Carrey stars in.
Yeah, I mean that's how movies were made back then. There's two types of movies. There's movies that the actors starred in, and there was movies made around the actors. Like like
Ace Ventura, a Jim Carrey movie.
yeah, Ace Ventura was a Jim Carrey movie. This is a movie that stars Jim Carrey.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think the Truman Show would have worked for me if you used more of its comedic potential. If it feels a little too self serious for its own good, in my opinion. However, I doubt many will agree. Well, I was right about that.
Yeah, you're right. Good call on your own opinion. Ah, sorry. No, I love this movie. So
All right, let's see. So, Teddy says, is that frickin' Lazerdude 99?
it's Lazerdude time, and I'm here to talk about the Truman Show. Yeah, it's me. Although he spelled it with an S instead of a Z, and I don't use the 99 anymore.
Well, I mean, you used to be 99.
Yeah, but it was always with a Z.
All right, fine, kick the fans. What do I care? Okay. Okay, all that said, let's dive into it. Okay, so I guess the place to start, because you kind of it's how long has it been since you've rewatched the Truman Show, Laserdude? Out of curiosity.
Ooh, I don't think that long. I think I saw it in 2024. I think I rewatched it.
That was a
Although
long
I
time.
will say, this is a movie I love to see reactors react to.
Yeah,
And it's not like super popular, but there's a few that are out there, and I enjoy a lot of them. Just to see them, see the character like unfold. So in a ways, I'm experiencing the movie, but not the exact. But yeah, I definitely think I've seen this in the last year or so.
I've done that too with like the mask. I've seen like people react to the mask for the first time.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah. Well, I mean, just to see people's like take on, especially in the modern world,
yeah,
people are always like, "Well, this is calling it shot." They're like, because I remember when I was a kid, when I was younger, when I first saw it, I was like, "Who would want to watch this? It's just a guy in his life. It's not even anything exciting." But then now in today's world of social media, where like people can talk about nothing for 5 minutes every day and get a million followers, yeah, it's not far off.
yep. All right, so the opening credits of this movie is just kind of like I love it's a tease of the reality here. We have like the faux credits where we have like the actors within the show being credited instead of the actual actors in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that we don't check in with the crew or like behind the scenes. Like we don't break the illusion until roughly an hour into the movie. When again, like you said, we kind of shift from Truman being in the know to moment he starts
From
acting.
Truman being the original to the actor.
Yeah. So our premise, just basically the most elaborate reality show ever seen. The lead is real, everything else it's a controlled, filmed environment, and basically Truman's in a psychodrama until Act Three, roughly.
Pretty much.
Yeah, which again, it's a pretty solid premise, I think.
You know, what I'm glad that they made the movie in the time that they did, because I feel like if this movie was made now, it would be like unrealistic to death. I feel like we allowed ourselves to have more of a like. Is this a breach of every human rights violation? Absolutely, it is. But give yourself into the illusion, okay? Just just enjoy it. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Accept the premise and move on.
I mean, too, credit where credit's due. Like in the writing of this movie, the idea is like we're gonna give them like just enough information that they need so they can know like how the world works without having
Yeah.
to like worry about everything. Because again, it's like a lot of information we provide when Kristoff does his interview later. It's like how the heck is this possible? Well, we explain how it's possible.
Yeah. You show just enough behind the curtains to get to believe it's real.
Now, I'm a huge advocate of the mundane. I love it when we kind of have like gags or just kind of stuff built around mundanity. So the idea that there's a mundane charm of Truman Burbank, where he's a nice guy with a catchphrase, good evening, good afternoon, good night, which is nice. Plus, you got to remember they lucked into a lot of this in terms of like the marketability of Truman.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like, oh look, he's a
Right, because
nice,
he was originally as a baby, he was just to like sell baby clothes.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and I like how they do explain like why would you have a show around a baby? Nobody would want to watch that. But the show is about just selling the products and selling the clothes. And then he gets older, and they probably realize, hey, we have a sizable people watching. And so then you have the scene when he's a kid and he's trying to climb the hill, and you hear the construction going on. They're trying to keep him away from them building the studio and
Yep.
stuff like that. It's just, I just love every part of this film.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, it's kind of a testament to we have just essentially a boring, just average Joe here, who is a testament to people will watch anything and give it meaning, no matter what. They will apply. Again,
Mm,
it's the thing of anyone who watches, for example, I think someone could be watching trash TV, someone could be watching soap operas, they could be watching, I don't know, like again any reality show, and they'll just like attach like meaning or say, oh yeah, we love this or we love that, and maybe it's not necessarily high art or anything, but again, or maybe it's just
mhm.
there's nothing. Maybe it's just literally you're just watching like a Hypnotoad from Futurama. Who knows?
Well,
But you
like,
would.
yeah, I mean, well, for me, like, I work at a radio station, and there's some people who just say that they just leave the radio on all the time for white noise, and I could
Mhm.
definitely see a show like the Truman Show being that sort of comfort show that's just always on in the background. You're not always watching it, but it's always there.
Yeah. So we occasionally, I love how strategic we are. We very occasionally cut to the viewer to exposit the information that we need. Where, for example, the first time we see the viewers, it's Scully from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm blanking on the actor's name, but that guy, the guys in the valets in the parking garage, those guys.
Yeah.
They're basically pointing out that okay, so the world's not watching Truman, get busy with his wife. We're not watching that. That was the first time we interject with the audience, and then we interject with the waitresses who basically weigh in on Truman's love life. With the past he has with Sylvia. I was gonna say her fake name, but with Sylvia.
Get her name right. No, yeah, it's true. Every time that the audience has a question, it finds a way to answer it in the proper time. You might have a lot of questions and you don't get them until later, where we get the interview with Ed Harris, but you'll get your answers. And sometimes when you need a question that needs answering right away, you get that quick through the people watching.
Yeah. So I love, by the way, with like when we of all the locations, I think that because we have the bathtub guy, we have like the guys, the ballet guys, and we have the diner. Those are and the old ladies. I think those are like the main four. I don't know if there's more, but those are like the main ones that we go to. And the diner is my favorite because we have like the pins and everything. The whole "How will it end?" I love the "How will it end" button, and just that being the question, because like even the show. Here's what
Yeah,
fascinates me about it. Okay,
the show, it takes its mistakes and makes it into a marketable choice.
yeah, so it's like this pathetic challenge to Truman and just like the question of life itself, where it's like the show is essentially a half baked premise because, like you said, originally it was just the sell baby product, and then there's like it's basically QVC turning into a show, or then maybe turning into different genres of television as the years go on. Like for example, it's probably like Little House on the Prairie during like or something like during the formative
I would
years of
love Kristoff to sell off the rights, and then it just becomes Truman just becomes part of a different type of show every
yeah.
every year.
Well, I mean,
Like
seriously though, think
zombie
about it.
apocalypse.
Well, that's the thing. Think about it though.
Oh, Meryl's
Technically,
alive.
well, each stage of his life, that's a different demographic of sitcom, essentially, a different demographic of what kind of show you can do.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Eh,
It's like the half baked idea that's also like an in real like kind of a real life showrunner dilemma where think Vince Gilligan from the Albuquerque verse, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. Look at Breaking Bad. He had a great character. He had an end point. He had a vague end point with Walter White. He wanted to take Mr. Chips and turn him into Scarface. The journey getting there, he had no idea where it was going. The character defined the way, and like it
Yeah.
led the way where he's going to go. Same thing with Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman. We know where he's going to end up, but how's he going to get there? So it's a question of like we have a character, and he's dictating the path of our story here. We have to accommodate around him. So that's kind of like that's what really fascinates me. Looking back on it years later, it's like, oh my god, this is such a relatable showrunner thing that Kristoff's dealing with.
Yeah. You know, and just when you hear more and more details about how his life ended up the way it was, like you just feel so sad for Truman. Like when Sylvia gets taken away, and you're like, "Oh, why didn't he go after her?" And then they say his mom got sick, and he was like,
Mm.
"Oh, you pieces of crap! You faked an illness so he wouldn't chase after the woman he loves, and probably had Meryl go in every day, and the mom talking about how great Meryl was, so you felt like he had no choice but to be with her." And it's just like I love how they just give you enough to fill in the cracks in your own head.
Oh yeah. It's just there's a great deal of sympathy for Truman, especially with us being in
Mhm.
the know and him not being, because there's just such a sympathy. Oh, this poor, which again I think is what all these Joe Schmo type shows also kind of benefit from as well, where like the poor guy just doesn't know.
Yeah.
So let me see. So we have a day in the life of Truman Burbank where he goes through the usual, but then light falls. So I love like the symbolism of the sky is falling. So the status quo is literally broken with the sky falling.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
it's I almost wonder there should have been a scene where it's just Truman's looking at the stars and like, I think there's a star missing or something. No, probably not. No, that'd probably be too much. But I almost wondered if there was something like that. But no, it's just one of the million lights that power their artificial sun, and just one's not gonna cause a discernible difference.
Yeah, but you do have to explain, like, oh god, like, imagine how terrible it would have been if, like, that thing actually hit Truman. The movie would have been over in, like, 5 minutes. So, his wife, Meryl, again, so the idea, each of these, so are basically our supporting cast for Truman internally. They all have, and I want to be, I meant to mention this earlier in the background. So, in the making of the movie, the actors they had this great like backstory that's kind of written out for them so that they could refer to like the character backstory that they could definitely see the seeds of in the movie with how they're playing the roles. Where Meryl, for example, the idea is that secretly, she's benefiting a great deal off of Truman, not just for like a role on a television show, but she gets paid for the product placement, so that's why she's doing it. Like if she can work in like a
Yeah.
good product placement, that's a bump in pay. If she sleeps with Truman, that's a bump in pay. Like this is the kind of stuff. So it's like she's the more she shills and product placements, she's again, she's very much it's very much kind of a selfish co-star kind of a vibe there. On the flip side, though,
Hmm.
you have Marlon. Now, Marlon, think about this. Marlon, we establish, and there's no way to really fake this. I mean, I guess if they really wanted to, they could always just hire different Marlons, and Truman would technically never know the difference. It'd be twisted if they did that, but I think the idea
I
internally.
think he would know if it's a different person claiming to be Marlon, unless they like fake some sort of like got into an accident and his face got so destroyed he needed new
Yeah.
reproductive surgery on his face, and so he's gonna look like a completely different person.
Anyway, so the logic here is that Marlon was a child star. He befriended Truman like 8 years old, and they did grow
Yeah,
up. And so there's a true friendship there. But he is secretly a child star. Probably has a stage mom, and if he actually befriends his
I'm not
co-star,
if I'm not mistaken, I think he wrote that himself, right? Didn't
yeah,
they
I think so.
they encouraged him to write the backgrounds themselves, and he
Yeah,
wrote that himself. Like why is this kid been his friend for so long? That yeah, he had a possessive stage mom who really put a lot of pressure on him, who befriended Truman, but like liked him, but he was in too deep.
yeah. So it's for example, I'm gonna just jump ahead a little bit here. I think the best moment of acting on Noah Emmerich, I believe that's the actor's name who plays, because I remember him from The Americans. I'm pretty sure that's the actor. Anyway, best performance on this Marlon character is the moment in which he basically stops Truman from holding Meryl hostage, and the look on his face because he's kind of processing, like it's like he has guilt for what he's doing, and it's like a little moment. He's like, obviously he's following like the lines and the prompts later on during the big like fathers
Yeah,
alive scene, but like in that moment though, you get to see like this guy is my not just my co-star, but he's kind of my friend who I'm keeping a big life altering secret from, and we've done some damage here. We've driven him to the brink. I don't recognize him for doing this unlikable thing. This is kind of what have we done? But again, he's not going to
yeah.
stop it though. He's not going to break the illusion. So again, there is layers there. I
Well,
like that.
he's in too deep. It's the
Yeah.
thing. He's been benefiting off of this stuff like anybody else. Every time Marlon shows up at Truman's, he has a case of beer, and then he points to the camera and say, "Oh, the king of beers." He's getting paid from these sponsors and from he's benefiting from this too. It's like I'm sure he does feel guilty, but he's in too good of a position to give it up.
Yep. So within the day in the life, he buys the magazine, which I love the reveal that he's buying the magazine so we can piece together Sylvia's face, which I thought was a really cool idea.
I mean, it's a serial killer thing you do if it's not reciprocated,
Of
but
the
it's
world, come on, man! It's like trying to like
I'm
he has
just
no
saying,
other.
you put some intimidating music over there. It looks like he's gonna kidnap women to take pieces of their face. I'm
Well,
just saying,
basically,
but with the context and everything, no, it is very romantic and everything.
just don't
I
put the
never really
Batman
saw
Forever
the
music
face
over
in
it.
the jumble of faces. I never really saw that all put together, but the fact that he did was enough for me to be sold on the idea.
Yeah. Anyway, so he has the insurance job, and I love the fact that the world has established these safeguards in the show, and they're kind of psychotic when you think of it. Well, they're not psychotic; they're just really like really. It's just really, it's just really cold the way they've done it here. Is the fact that they've
Yeah.
psychologically it's just very calculated, and with these safeguards that they've put into place throughout Truman's life to make sure he has. Think about it. Okay, so they gave him the traumatic death of his father. The reason being not for ratings or anything, but well, in part for ratings, but the main reason is to give him a fear of being an explorer and sailing
Give him
away. Like,
trauma.
give him trauma so he won't leave. Which again, it's smart, but it's really dark, but it's smart.
And then they make sure that they occasionally
Give him
bring
the
that trauma
reminder.
back into his life
I love
just
in
to
the
make
rewatch.
sure.
I love that boat's there.
Oh,
You know, he's just a random rowboat when he's like walking to the ferry. He's like, "Yep, we got a reminder of the trauma."
yeah. It's like we can't allow this guy to heal emotionally because otherwise he might try to leave again.
Which again is like it's the dichotomy we're going to get to later. Kristoff again, he says Truman's free to leave, which clearly he's not, but he says that, and then we're doing pulling stuff like this all the time just to show you that Kristoff,
Yeah,
whether he's just a liar or he himself is delusional without realizing the harm that he's doing. It's unclear. Oh,
yeah,
he's up.
yeah. He's free to leave, except we will fake a nuclear reactor meltdown in order to keep him from leaving.
Yeah, it's also I
Another
love this.
detail that I oh sorry, go ahead.
I was going to bring up the dogs. Were you about to bring up the dogs?
What about him?
Well, I'm just saying, it was like another like safeguard they had. We saw like he was trying to leave. He was trying like to venture out one time. Like this dog was like kind of
Oh
scaring
yeah,
him.
yeah,
And
yeah.
wait, and think about every day in part of his routine, the Dalmatian like like climbs up on him, bringing about that fear. So it's like the little, slow like
Yeah.
yeah, make sure you don't leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like and I always like how the show at this point I think the show has realized that the Fiji trip is inevitable,
Hmm.
but they're not ready for it.
Yeah, they're
Is they
deluding
keep on
themselves that
saying, "Wait a few months. Wait a few
yeah,
months. We haven't had the set built yet. We don't have the location scouted out yet." Whatever their reasons is, they I'm sure they would have had him go on a journey to whatever version of Fiji they made, like give him something doused in his drink when he gets on the plane so he doesn't remember the flight there, and then yeah, then make up some story and like, oh yeah, Sylvia is dead, or you know, like just to put a pin in this story once and for all. But they're not ready yet, so they keep on saying, "Wait a few months, give it some time."
yeah.
Basically, saying, "Give us some time to figure something out."
So the I think one of the highlights of the movie is just the idea that Truman just sends this production into a tailspin when he gets spontaneous.
Yeah,
It's just great.
yeah. He's like, it's honestly kind of like Robin Williams on a set. Like he keeps on improvising, and they don't like it. But the problem is, like, he doesn't even know he's an actor, so he can't help but improvise.
Yeah. So again, all these little like all the guffaws are just kind of like adding up. Like you have that, you have like the radio, and then of course we have Kirk returning. So Truman's dad just he snuck
Yeah.
onto the show, so he could basically be brought back, and which then leads to like the chase, and also like I love the elevator gag too, where it basically goes into a building and he
Okay,
like
their excuse for the elevator is the worst lie. That the
yep.
elevator crashed and like hurt so many people. He opened the elevator
Well, no,
doors
no, no.
first, and
They're
the
trying to
entire
get him to
back
not go on.
room.
Well, they're trying to get him to. They're not lying about what he saw. They're trying to avoid that happening again. That's why they said it was an elevator crash.
Yes, but it's just like I would try to come up with a more believable lie of what he saw. Like I don't know, just like this is a secret VIP room that we have or something. I don't know. I mean, obviously it was just the
It's very
green room
clearly
for like
craft service on the table and everything
yeah,
too.
for craft service. I don't know. It's just like I don't know what would have been a better lie, but the lie that they gave was just really really bad.
Yep. So
Uh,
I love the most tension filled one was when he visits Meryl at work and this the tension. Oh God, are they going to cut into this poor extra?
when he what?
When he goes to Meryl's at work, she's a nurse at the hospital, and
Oh,
you have this question of
right.
like, are they going to cut into this poor extra?
Yeah. Okay, who's your favorite like extra or like side character in the show? Like not of the main characters, but like people who got a little bit of screen time. I love the parallels of the twins being like so nice in like the fake world, but when they're looking for him, they're just a bunch of cussing jerks.
The twins always stuck with me because the idea they really like for it's always the thing they're really aggressively like shoving him against the to me they
Yes.
were always the creepy standouts because like before you realize okay they're shoving him so he doesn't get in the way of the product placement that's behind him, but it was like always like
Yeah.
man these guys are like hello Truman, what are your buddies, stand over there, it's like almost like they're gonna mug him every time.
Yeah.
In terms of oh boy, in terms of my favorite extra though, I'm just saying those guys always stick out to me when I think of the extras. I think my favorite extra is I really like the bus driver. I thought the bus driver and the travel agent are good, but I think the bus driver.
Now the travel agent scene is the funniest, like has the funniest background with the
Yes,
bolt of lightning
I
going
love
through the
that joke.
plane.
That might be my
What
favorite
could
joke.
happen to you?
God, I still laugh so hard when I see that reveal. Like you see,
If I could get that poster on my wall, I would buy that in a heartbeat.
really, would you like that poster?
Oh, absolutely. It would just be an in joke for just me and anyone else who has seen the Truman Show.
I'll
But
see.
the bolt of lightning going through a plane. Maybe when Ellie's like older and understands it's a joke, I don't want her to be terrified of going on a plane.
I'll
But
see what I for
yeah.
you. I'll see what I can do.
But the bus driver, yeah, he always came across to me as like he was an extra that never really had to work with Truman a whole lot.
Yeah,
So like when he actually had to, like he felt really sad about it. Like when he
yeah.
says, "I'm sorry, son," it almost felt like he was apologizing straight to Truman himself.
Yeah, and I think you gotta wonder how much guilt's on these actors too, and that what they're having direct contact with him, like prolonged direct contact.
Yeah.
It's the idea of like, man, you're really just lying to this guy and getting his hopes up, and it's the idea like, I can't drive this bus, I can't drive this ferry. But none of we're actors, we can't drive these things.
Well, like, do
Yeah,
the buses never leave? Is there not somebody? Well, I always thought like maybe he could drive a bus, but like the point was just to wreck it so it couldn't go anywhere.
yeah. It's
So
also the thing like even if he could drive the bus, which it's debatable if he could, it's a matter of
he's
like
not supposed to.
well, he doesn't know where to go from there. What is he going to? He doesn't have a destination
Yeah.
because he can't just drive to Fiji or wherever. He can't. At the very least, he doesn't know where the heck he's going.
And I also like I love the scene where Truman starts to figure that out, where he's just watching in his rearview mirror the three extras go by over and over and over again.
That's great.
It's such a great detail because, like, obviously they don't have anything to do. NPCs in a video game have more daily tasks to do than they do, but it's just so
You remember
great
the
for them to
first
just,
positions gag where everyone like assumes first position they're standing around like mimes?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's creepy almost.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, so we
Uh,
have a theme park priest in the comments says we use the Truman Show when we taught English in South Korea. Fun fact.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So you have a lot of South Koreans who can say good evening, good afternoon, and good night. So the car scene with Meryl, Truman's determined to leave, but again, despite our hilarious travel posters aside, he's not deterred, and but he is stymied at every turn. So he's in a car with Meryl and decides to be really spontaneous just to get out of there, just to see what's going to happen if you can be really spontaneous, because he's kind of slowly being convinced that there is a force that's keeping him there because again, his father's showing up, and no one's like acknowledging this, and he's tried to explain this to his buddy, so he knows that something's up, and again, he's seeing the glitches in the Matrix, one could say, he's seeing like the actors going around in a circle, and he knows that something's up, and it's basically this is where we're getting like the psychodrama stuff that I really like, where it's like a man who knows that he's not crazy, the world is crazy.
Yeah. Like, I like that the movie doesn't tell you exactly the moment, like he pieces together that it could be a television show.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of moments where you think like maybe it's when Meryl says somebody do something, or maybe it's when his dad shows up. But there's a lot of moments where you just are like he's just trying to test his boundaries, like
It's
where can he
incrementally, he's
actually
getting
go?
more, he's building the puzzle pieces. The pieces are coming
Yeah.
together ultimately. So it's not just one thing. It's like that, like the coup d'etat, the cherry on top is when, okay, this feels like a soap opera moment. Oh God, I'm in a TV show.
You know, well, I think the real moment is when his friend is saying, if everyone was in on it, I would have to be in on it too. And I think that's the moment he realizes, oh, you are in on it. Everybody's in on it.
Yeah.
Like literally everybody. Like it's an all or nothing deal. I can't say, well, these people are, but not this one. It's everyone, or or I'm going crazy.
All right. So, okay, I've always had this weird, I've had this weird comparison for the element of the Truman Show. I love with like the actors and their imperative. They keep them in there at all times, all the extras, and just the way in which we keep them in the show at all cost. It's kind of like antibodies fighting a germ. And how they intervene. It's just the fact that it's the way in which all the extras intervene and just prevent him, like literally, like they swarm around him.
But instead of attacking it, it's keeping it in there.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Well, they are attacking it, but they're not killing it. They're just like attacking and keeping it in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love that but again, we're seeing there is a danger here in which Truman's getting more desperate and he's doing risky things. Like, for example, we have an actor in the car with him and he's like having her drive steer while he's closing his eyes driving across the bridge.
Yeah, and driving through a pillar of fire.
Yep. But still, I love this.
And
Is you want to do it again? No, that's funny. And
I
they
mean,
says,
look,
"What next?" And
her
then there's the meltdown.
yeah, there's a great comedic working off of between Jim Carrey and why am I blanking on her name?
Laura Linney.
Laura, I wanted to say Laura Linney, but I was worried I was saying the wrong person's name. But no, yeah, there's a great comedic potential with them, like the way she just talks
Mm-hmm.
in this show, it just makes you dislike her. But they have such good little like back and forth little things, like even the little like I'll cross my fingers for you, and the way her face just drops and then instantly goes back to that fake little smile.
Yep, and
Oh, it's so good.
you probably remember this, but like the way they did that is like they basically her. In addition, like the backstory thing, which obviously she factored in some backstory she wrote out of the character biography, but like they basically showed her like 60s spokesmodels and stuff, so for the whole product placement thing. That's kind of where all that came from. She feels very
Mm,
60s. She feels very just kind of artificial and just kind of like like the faux smile, the Stepford wife
absolutely.
smile kind of thing.
Well, the whole world of Sea Haven doesn't feel like the 90s. Or was it? No, it was the early 2000s when it came out, right?
No, no, no. This came out. It's still in the 90s. This came out in 98.
Okay, 98. Okay,
They
yeah.
shot in
Yeah, but
97, so we're still firmly we're the tail end of the 90s, but we're in the 90s.
but either way, it doesn't feel like that world that they're in is a product of the 90s. The TV shows are still like in black and white, playing like it's a great to be at home and with your friends. It's like that's the movies that it's playing all the time. Just nothing but be happy where you are. And yeah, so it's really interesting because like it speaks to the mindset that people have of, oh, back in the day things were so much better, back in the day things were so much more clean, or not as dark and everything, and it's a false mindset because it's just you were a kid back in the day, so you looked at things with more innocent eyes. And so everybody thinks that their generation, when they were younger, was cleaner, was more less dark, less, but it's not true. And so I like that the movie's trying to capture that refined back in the day feel for Sea Haven, for Truman to constantly live in the ideal world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it feels very 60s, feels very, again, as safe as it could be, like a simpler time for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's very gripping to see Truman at the end of his rope, and off the reservation, and just again seeing like like I love that Meryl pulls. This is always just I love this is funny but dramatic at the same time. I love that we have this balance where Meryl pulls like the multi tool, the multi kitchen tool on him, which is like a knife, like a peeler and whatever, or the third thing is. And
What are you
it's
gonna do, Meryl?
funny.
You're gonna slice me, dice me, or peel me? So many choices.
So it's a funny yet again it's a funny symbol of who she is and like kind of like it's the ironic weapon of choice of like what she's all about, which is like shilling product, and she's using it in desperation here, just in fear of like the very sporadic Truman. So it's traumatic, and it leads to kind of a dark moment here. And again, this is a moment that again they have to. Truman's been very likable probably throughout for the 30 years the show has been on, because again he
Yes.
hasn't really made any enemies. He's been a very safe environment for from what we can tell. They've engineered it clearly, but he's kind of having a breaking point here, and it just signifies that he's holding her hostage until she calls for help. And you have to wonder, like, is he doing this purely to see what's going to happen? Like when she says, "Do something," and when Marlon comes in there and just kind of like breaks the tension there. When Truman kind of like puts his hands to his head, do you think that's just guilt for what he's done, or do you think that is like it's the
Well,
realization of somebody came? That's too convenient. He's in on it, or at the very
well,
least, like maybe
here's
this is a
here's
show.
the
That's too
thing.
convenient.
I've never blamed Truman for the knife
Yeah, I
scene
mean,
at
she
all.
pulled it on him
He
first.
pulled it on him first. He grabbed it from her, and he was holding her, but he wasn't pointing the knife
Yeah,
through
he
her
wasn't
throat
like
or
actually
anything.
going to hurt her. He's just like trying to get her
No,
to
he yanked the
confess.
knife from her,
Uh huh.
and then when she called for help, then he's like, "What? Who are you talking to?"
It's a great moment.
Like I feel like that's him defending himself first and foremost,
Hmm.
and then when something else happens. So much has been building on top of another one thing on another. The radio, the skylight builds onto the rain then builds onto the radio builds onto the elevator scene builds on, it just keeps on building, 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 and here is proof almost that she is talking to somebody else. She is crying out to somebody she didn't, and then it's her reaction to it. She almost goes right back into her happy-go-lucky mood. She's like, "Nothing, I didn't say anything." Like, why are you going from "Somebody stop him" to "Wow, nothing, nothing."
No, nothing's
It's like
wrong.
it's her desperately trying to hang on to the secret, and I feel like he's just like at his wits end at this point, and he wants answers, and that's why he's like, "Who are you talking to?"
Yeah. Right, let's see. So Marlon again seemingly talks Truman off the ledge, but again, I love that it's Kristoff is using Marlon as a vessel here, and he basically it's kind of like the creator given like, okay, I'm going to give you your father back to placate you and right the ship
Mhm.
here. And again, I love it. Kind of like it also any genuineness that's coming from Marlon here in his attempts. Again, it's all coming from Kristoff, so it just kind of like sands away the actual the actual like kind of like redemption in Marlon potentially.
Yeah. It makes you think, like, how much does Kristoff have control? Like, is
Well, every time
all
people
of
try to stop him, that's Kristoff saying stop him.
right, right. But what I mean is like every conversation with Truman, Truman and Marlin, is every conversation with Kristoff? Like I feel like it's not. My
Yeah,
feeling on the matter is probably like anything plot driven is Kristoff and the writers, but anything that's just regular conversation, they let them to ad lib and do on their own.
yeah, I concur with that. Honestly, the way I read it is okay. So there's a script that is like they've gone over essentially like a showrunner and the writers room coming up with like a season's worth of stories, right? So there was a planning session of like, okay, here's what here's the storyline. Like, here are the cards on the wall. That kind of put in like writers' room terms. Here are the cards on the wall. Here's what we're gonna do, and we have like a general outline. Maybe it's kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm in terms we have like an outline in terms of what we need to happen,
Yeah.
and here's how we
We need
engineer.
to get these advertisements said by the end of the
Yeah.
day,
So I
which
think
is
there's a
probably
plan.
why it comes up in like with Meryl. Like that I don't think is Kristoff. That is like somebody else trying to fill the quota
Yeah.
and
So
brings it up at the worst possible time for the cocoa drink.
yeah. So like, well, plus remember, she's like at least in her character backstory, she's doing that to fill her own pocket. Like, for example, the
Yeah,
product placement is a thing; it's going to always be there, like naturally, just built into the set and everything. But like, if she does it, if she is able to like fully get it like on camera, like perfect, like that,
sure.
that's kind of more lining her pockets. Like the products are going to be there. Like Truman's going to be using that brand of coffee and everything else to be in frame, regardless. It feels like the writer, like Kristoff, just has a general vision of like, okay, here's what we need to do like over the course of the season. The writers probably lay out like, okay, here's kind of Truman's day to day. Here's what we need to accomplish. The actors, they've been given the outline of, okay, here's kind of what we need to achieve based on what the writers have dictated. If something goes wrong or something very specific needs to happen, or there's a brand new idea that Kristoff has decided that he wants, Kristoff will then go on the earpiece. It feels like in case of emergency kind of thing, like we see here, where okay,
Yeah.
we need the showrunner to essentially like tell us what the heck to do. We've written ourselves into a corner. We have a problem. We need them to fix this. We need
There's
the
just certain
creative.
lines that I kind of like in my head. I can feel Kristoff being the one feeding. Like in the conversation that he has with his mother after he sees his
Yeah,
dad,
that
and
feels
she
like a
says,
Kristoff response. Yeah,
"Yeah, that's it," when she's like, "But I never blamed you, Truman, and I
yeah,
don't blame you now." That feels like a Kristoff line feed.
yeah,
Like anything that's drawing back to the drama or the trauma, like I always feel like that's Kristoff behind the mic.
yeah. So speaking of which, so again, we're an hour into the movie. We return as father, and then we have the big interview with Kristoff, in which we reveal the behind the scenes and how everything works. So again, I want to be very clear. I love Ed Harris in this movie.
Mhm.
He was one of the big elements for me. I mean, I love how very sparingly we use him. We don't really do anything with him until like an hour in the movie, and then he doesn't have a conversation with Truman until the very end of the movie. And even then, they're not even like in the same space. So the showrunner, he's basically the showrunner with too much power. He's developed a god
Mhm.
complex, which any success
A
like
literal god complex by the end.
basically he's like, what if James L. Brooks went biblical? It's essentially what we have here. It's kind of he's in terms of like a show that's been on for like over 30 years. That's essentially what he's working with here. The man's developed a god complex, but over one man's life, which is really twisted, really interesting. He's essentially Truman's father, essentially. Not biological. He's the non-biological father, to use a running gag we like to use here.
No,
Uh,
but yeah, not biological, but he's been the guiding force of every aspect. He's had more control over Truman's life than any father ever has over his own children. Okay.
yeah, agreed. So it's that thing. So essentially, he's the father. He is he sorry he's we revealed that Truman was an unwanted pregnancy, and he was essentially like the first child ever adopted by a corporation. I think, right?
Yeah, first
Yeah,
studio to ever gain the rights to adopt a human child.
which is just twisted in its own right.
Yeah,
But
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 I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a world that's overpopulated.
sure. So he's been there and just he's been building kind of this perfect life, this perfect safe life for Truman. So our comments right now, so we have Little Blue Eli from Little Blue Productions in the comments right now. He says, I just now finished the movie. This is a while ago. I just now finished the movie, mind blowing but good at the same time. And goes on to say Ed Harris's character is sadistic and evil. So that's the really interesting thing here with Kristoff, is that Kristoff, he has a very it's demented, but I love that he does. There's like an argument that can be made, at least in the sense of he is doing twisted things, but he is doing it potentially from a good place. And again, that's the debate to have, like if his intentions are actually pure, or if like I think his intentions are I think he believes what he's saying. I don't think he's right about what he's saying, but I think he believes what he's saying. I think he does. I
Here's
think
the thing.
He's deluded himself like a god. He's deluded himself into I have the power over this one person's life, but it's because I care about him so much.
Here's the thing, though. Kristoff has secluded himself in this dreamland just as much as he secluded Truman. You
Absolutely,
know,
but Kristoff has
because
no
they
fallback.
say it there, you like it's a great honor to do interviews with you. We know you don't do them. You don't make public appearances.
Mm-hmm.
He's in that dome just as much as trapped as Truman, but the
Yeah.
difference is he made that choice. He's making that choice to be able to be trapped in there because he wants, in a sadistic way, I think he wants Truman's life. He wants everything to be happy and peaceful and hunky dory. And that's why when he says that, oh yeah, Truman can leave anytime he wants to, I think he believes that. I think he has a delusion that this is the perfect world that he's made for Truman, and why on earth would he want to leave?
So that's the thing too. Again, that's the fascinating kind of connection, like kind of chord connecting the hearts on that one between those two. It's I love that Kristoff, he is trapped by success. He is like but everyone essentially in the production is kind of trapped by the success of the show. None of them can leave. Well, I mean, mind you, I know they could technically kill off people or like hire new extras, but the idea is like the cast, like again, Truman cannot leave. If he leaves, that entire production, that essentially there's like a line in the movie about like the amount of like revenue that the show generates is enough to run a small
It
country or
takes, yeah, and he says it takes a small country to run this thing.
yeah. So with that in mind, it's like a lot of people lights get shut off on a lot of people if Truman does decide to leave. So while he is saying he's free to leave at any point, which again maybe delusionally he believes is true in the sense of I think maybe creatively in the sense of if he really like Christoph attests that if he really wanted to leave, he would have found out in over 30 years it was on a TV show and he would have tried to leave. But again, in building those safeguards and traumatizing him the way that he has, and then realizing the show's just kind of become way again. He thought it was going to be a short gig of like selling baby products. He never imagined it would go to these heights, and he just deluded himself. But the success has completely gone to his head, made him to like a god of one man.
Yeah.
And again, if he, it's gotten to the point where again by they're not considering the possibility that it could end anymore. It's like it'll just keep going, and they cannot accept that
Well, no,
Truman would
his plan is expansion because he says that he wants the first on-screen conception.
conception.
Like he wants another kid to make a second show,
And
one that
remember that
follows
he
Truman, one that follows the kid.
with that in mind, with the conception, you have to factor this in, Lazerdude, that he again we see in the third act of this movie, he's kind of okay if Truman dies. And that's the thing with the conception plan, like that's basically saying, yeah, if Truman dies, we're still in the air, we're still good. It'll go. We might rename the show, or we'll just name him. We'll name the kid Truman as well.
You know what?
Truman
Something
Jr.
I just realized.
Hmm.
You know how like Meryl leaves the show,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have that new girl
Then the
that
plan
comes
was to
along.
set him up with her, and then she would conceive the child.
Yeah,
Yes.
is it just me? I'm trying to look up a photo of her, but she definitely looks more like Sylvia,
I don't
right?
think that's an accident.
That's what I'm saying. I think she looks like her. I think she has the same hair color. She's wearing red.
Yep.
I think they're like, well, we can. If he likes somebody like Sylvia, we can get somebody like Sylvia,
Yep.
which is just like the mindset of a rich dad saying, "Oh, a baby can have whatever he wants as long as it's not this." It's like it's sort of things like, I'll give him what he wants. He wants a brunette. I'll give him a brunette. This is where it's like, yeah, that was the only thing that drew him to her.
Yep. So I love, speaking of I feel terrible because I meant to look up her name. The actress who plays Sylvia. She was on Designated Survivor, and she was really good on that.
Natasha Micklehone.
Yeah, that sounds right. I can never get her last name right. That's probably why I can't
Yeah,
remember.
sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
But that's the thing. Like she's a really good actress. I remember when watching Disney's. I know this lady from somewhere. And I realized, oh my god, it's Sylvia from the Truman Show. It's great. Anyway, yeah, she's really good and like really staunchly defending Truman. Now, mind you, when she basically tried to expose this to him when she was on the show. And do you think that was her intent getting on the show from day one? Because I don't think she seduced
I don't
Truman.
actually think it was.
I think she just. I think what happened, and what we kind of show in the movie, is that Truman was supposed to be set up with Meryl, and they orchestrated. They had the whole thing. Okay,
Yeah,
we're gonna give him a high school sweetheart, and then it's gonna go from there. But
yeah,
I love the idea that he's making forging a genuine connection off script, and that's driving the showrunners crazy. But you see like an
yeah.
actual connection forming between them.
You can see that she's probably getting written up for these encounters. Like she makes eye contact with Truman and then
Yeah,
it is escorted away like that. So she probably gets written up there as like, hey, you can't make eye contact. You're just an extra. Don't talk to him. Just wander around.
and in the
And then,
library,
well, no, then there's the dance.
yeah,
And then she makes eye contact with him again and is escorted out. And so once again, probably is like, okay, this is your last warning. Don't make contact with Truman. We have somebody. You're not going to be the person, okay? Probably because they've done a psych profile on her and she's not devious enough to do that for that long period of time.
yeah.
But they still need extras. So then she's in the scene where they're studying for finals in the library, and the more she just talks to Truman, the more she feels this is just a person. This isn't this is just a person who has the rights. And I think once she makes that human connection with him, she can't go on with the show any longer and tries her best to expose it.
Oh yeah. So so again, it's just kind of like love persevering to a degree there. And I know I'm borrowing kind of from WandaVision a little bit on there, but I mean it's kind of true though. It's just the idea there is like it's the seduction of like Truman can. It's like on some unconscious level, Truman can. I mean, mind you, she does literally plant the seed of the idea that okay, like this isn't real. That's kind of what she says, and she goes away. So it's always like the seduction of like there's something more out there. So there's always, but again, there's still like that connection for. I love the idea that an actor improvised, like the guy pretending to be her father, like improvised Fiji, and that's why he's like obsessed with Fiji.
Yeah. You know what's I always consider like how much did the Fiji tourism pick up? Because I always wanted to go, and now that Survivor shoots there, I really want to go. And I have no idea of what their culture is like and what even Fiji is like. But because the Truman Show kept on talking about going to Fiji, I'm actually kind of interested in going.
See, now I don't want to go to Fiji, but I've contemplated drinking Fiji water. Just throwing it out there, you know. Anyway,
Hell
so
yeah, absolutely.
okay, so I love the biblical parallels with kind of what's going on with Truman too, with Kristoff, because Kristoff again with the God complex, he kind of factored in there a little bit. It's the idea that it's the apple of knowledge problem,
Yeah.
you know. By the way, one of the big money shots too is the sleeping Truman and Kristoff and putting his hand on the screen, which again is like
Oh
he
yeah.
care again possibly cares for him as a son, or again just the create or sorry, like put sorry, that's a lot of gobbledygook I just said there. Let me reverse that here.
No, he. Yeah, he
It's
definitely
like,
feels like he is the god over Truman's life, and so I think in his mind he takes that responsibility very seriously, and he wants to give him that normal life. But Truman is rebelling against that, and I think that's how he views it, like a teenage rebellion for someone who doesn't know what's the right thing for him.
yeah, like does he care for him as a son or as the creative endeavor, like the show, like embodied in a physical being? You know, like is he valuing him as number one on the call sheet, basically essentially as his creative, like his creation versus like his son?
I think he likes his creation more than the person because, as Truman says later when they have their conversation, you never had a camera in my head, meaning you never actually knew who I was as a person because you
Yeah,
didn't know my thoughts, you didn't know my desires, you didn't know anything that was going on in my mind.
yeah.
That was like his one spot that he had that was private.
I mean, also it's the fact that he's willing to potentially kill his son, so that's probably not father material right there.
Well, I think he's thinking is like this is tough love. I'm going to show him,
Yeah. So
but
speaking of which,
no.
so just building to that, Act Three. So I love. So again, I love Jim Carrey's improv with the soap on the mirror, and I love I kind of forgot about this. At the end of that scene, he says that one's for free. So that's his tip off to them that I know what's
Yeah,
going on here.
that's his first wink to the camera.
So time has passed. I love. I always forgot that significant time has passed to explain how he could dig the hole and everything like that. So he's known for that long a time since he's basically been playing depressed over Meryl, so he can do the Great Escape. The whole town's searching for him. I love that we use the moon as like a giant spotlight, and then let's turn the sun on early.
Everything about this town that has been innocent and lovable turns terrifying in the
Yeah,
search for Truman. The
yeah,
dog, who is just a playful little mutt, is growling
yeah,
ferociously. The twins, who were just nice little gentlemen that he did business with, are cussing up a storm. The moon, which was giving such nice light, is now a searchlight, like he's flipping escape from a prisoner of war camp.
yeah. I love, by the way, the world going into a panic where it's a big moment. Kristoff says, "Cut the feed," and it's like a huge, like, oh my god, we shot Kennedy kind of moment, like, cut the feed,
And
you know.
transmission, and transmission.
And I love that later on, like like he says to we have a lot of like fun Jim Carrey kind of movie alumni here. We have uh Philip, I think it's Philip Baker Hall, who was like Bookman from Seinfeld. He is Jack in Bruce
Yeah,
Almighty. So we have him here, and there was also Paul Giamatti from Man on the Moon. So we have like a lot, kind of Jim Carrey
yeah.
cast members in this.
No, Paul Giamatti is great in this. Just like it's a bit role, but I think he makes the most out of that role.
By the way, I have to wonder when they were casting Westworld if they were pretty much they had to have been thinking Truman Show just for the context of what Westworld is. The whole reality, just kind of like how we
Yeah,
what's real and not. Just given like, oh, well, if you're going to put anyone in this show, we should probably let's get Kristoff in there. Let's get Ed Harris in that. Anyway,
never actually seen Westworld, but yeah,
well, yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
But your
look,
point
I
remains.
dropped off of it, but the concept was, it's just very strong, original source material. And the adaptation, I think, the first season of the adaptation, I think, is pretty good. And I kind of dropped off it after that point, but yes, who knows? Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry, my point. So the point being, later on, he makes he says, like, just that one graphic, the viewership is skyrocketed.
yeah. We've got more viewers off of this one graphic than we've ever had.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
everyone's watching. Like something, it's the OJ Bronco chase. This is like the world has stopped.
it's interesting because that means that they're never actually recording unless it's on Truman. Like all the cameras that are on are never recording because otherwise you could just go back in the feed and look back to, Truman running towards the docks, sort of thing. But it's only ever recording when it's on Truman.
Well, that's true. I mean, mind you, they have cameras in the boat and everything, but they don't know. They need to know where he is.
Yeah, but when you have a bajillion cameras, You're not going to just
Not just no,
go
not a
through every
bajillion.
single one.
Over 5,000 cameras.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's see.
I do love the symbolism of the water too. Like Truman's gotten over his fear because he realized that the fear is fake. The fear comes from something that never happened to begin with.
It's a
And so
triumph.
because of that, he's able to defeat it.
It is the great triumph and hero shot, seeing him like being able to be the explorer he wanted to be, and he's dressed like the boat captain, like even like Chris was
Yeah.
like, turn the feedback on. Look, there's our hero shot. We got it.
Yeah, basically he probably is in the waters that nobody else has gone by before because like why would you need to even sail these waters like that far down?
Yeah. So then, so Kristoff. So this is interesting. So real quick, this is interesting too. Is that the camera's back on? Truman. He's conquering his fear and his trauma, and he's becoming the explorer, and the nation is rallying for him. And this is the beautiful kind of commentary on the relationship, the fandom, and the TV, the dreaded TV finale, where everyone wants a good ending. Everyone wants the
Yeah.
show to end, but again, it's the dilemma of when it's end. Shows are always nervous about the endings, and it's always like there's expectation, and then there's like if you want it to end, that means it's kind of like there's this great adage I've heard before. I can't remember who coined this originally because it's been used a couple times, but it was like the old adage of I think it was the guys who did Avatar: Last Airbender. That's the last time I heard this. Brian Konietzko basically said, "I want to let me here." If someone walked up to you and said like, "Hey, let me tell you the story. It doesn't have an ending," you're going to walk away from that person. Because you're going to be standing there
Yeah.
forever as they tell you this never-ending story. Avatar: Last Airbender. It's a 3-book story. It's a beginning, middle, and end.
You know, I used to like The Walking Dead quite a bit. I enjoyed it. I was watching every season with my parents oddly, which like was so weird because like my mom doesn't watch anything horror related and she loved The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But I officially gave up on the show when I heard the showrunner say, "Oh, I have ideas for 12 more seasons." I'm like, "Oh, so you don't have an end that you're working towards. You're just milking this for as much as it's worth." And that's when officially I dropped out from watching the
Now
show.
that wasn't
Because
Kirkman,
like
right?
yeah. Yeah, it's just like if you don't have an end in mind, you don't need to know it all. Like you said, the Breaking Bad writers didn't have it. But if
Yeah,
you
they
don't
knew
have an
what the
end
ending
in
was. They
mind,
didn't know how they were going to get there. It's the thing.
yeah, exactly. But they had a vision for how they wanted it to end. Where if you don't have that, if you're just like I don't know, just trying to like, hey, we're popular. Let's keep on riding this train till the wheels fall off. It's just like I will have so much less respect for you than ending in a time where maybe some people thought, oh, you could have kept going, but you know what? At least you ended on a point that was satisfactory and didn't stretch out to be on the audience's patience. But anyway, yeah, like but this is a TV show that wasn't ever supposed to end. It wasn't supposed to have a conclusion until Truman died,
Yeah.
and love how he finally takes his fate into his own hands when like the storm comes up, and for the first time, well, not for the first because he says that one was for free, but he blatantly talks to the show's producers and says, "Is that the best you can do? You have to kill me." It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite pieces of acting right there. Just the defiance of "Come at me, bro. I will not stop."
So the fact that Kristoff in this moment he decides to try and capsize. He throws like it turns up the winds and everything to a dangerous level, and even like the Giamatti here's like he's going to kill me. Doesn't even care. He's morally objecting to this, where it's psychotic, and so the fact that they're going to because you can't kill him on air. He was born on air. Why not?
Yeah, he's born in front of a live audience.
So Kristoff is just completely off his rocker, and there's a question of is he just play? Is it the ego of a god who's like you're challenging my authority? I'm gonna like a god. I'm gonna like be a
Oh
wrathful
yeah,
god in this moment,
he's
or
definitely he's definitely going scorched earth on him,
Yeah, so it feels like
or
that. Or alternatively, is it like, is it like the father trying to stop the son for his own good? Like, it's like, you don't want to leave. I'm going to make sure you don't leave. It's a good chance you're going to survive, but I don't know.
no, I don't feel that with this scene. I feel like this is the creation rebelling against the
Yeah,
creator, and the creator is lashing out.
that's where I kind of would throw my throw my vote on the pile there too. Yeah,
Like obviously he doesn't want to kill him. That's why he stops the storm. But
yeah,
he wants to punish him. He wants to. How dare you attack my vision and mess with my creation?
yeah. So then we have the most iconic part of the Truman Show. The ending has always been like one of the god tier endings of the dramatic
Absolutely.
Jim Carrey film. Seriously, and again, we used bits of the ending in the Jim and Annie documentary, and I think they used it so well. Where it's basically um, he's reached the edge of the world. It's kind of like King of Kings. There's nowhere else to conquer. He's there's a
Oh my
stair.
gosh. I tell you, when the boat hits the wall,
Yeah.
like my brain didn't process what was happening at first. Like you see this shadow, and
Hmm.
my brain's like, "Wait, shadow shouldn't be there." But I didn't catch up until the boat hits the wall, and I literally jumped because it was
Yeah.
that startling.
Yeah, I love like we have like the stairway to reality, and it's just like this great kind of like joke of existence to Carrie in this moment where, and
With
again,
a little
Carrie,
bit of Jesus walking on water there to
yeah.
boot.
Well, again, they have the whole God complex. You kind of that goes hand in hand. So yeah, plus, I mean, he is kind of
Yeah,
like this again. If he's the son of the showrunner in a sense, he's kind of he would fit.
yeah.
But again, I love that again. Jim Carrey over the years, especially, he's gone through the metamorphosis. He's basically been like very, very honest about kind of stuff that's been kind of running around the old hamster wheel upstairs. He's been kind of like kind of the transit. I don't know if transcendental is the right word, but the whole very very kind of like freewheeling about how he kind of feels about the uncertainty of life and stuff, that kind of thing. I'm not finding the right word to describe like kind of what Jim Carrey these days. A lot of people just say like weird or like he's not political, but it's like kind of like a very kind of maybe a
No,
hippie
he's definitely
mentality.
he's soul searching,
There
really.
you go. That's probably the better way of putting it. So kind of like and I'm not saying that in a detrimental way. I'm just saying it's different. It's kind of like kind of an enlightened Jim Carrey, I guess would probably be the best way of putting it. Kind of like the kidding era of Jim Carrey. And I want to make it Tiki and I and myself. We are obsessed with how great and underrated the show Kidding is, and I love it. And actually, one of the directors of Kidding is directing the Thunderbolts movie, which is why I'm really excited, looking forward to it this coming week. But point being, sorry, is that there is something very much kind of like about kind of like the joke of existence to a degree, where it's like there's a stairway right to reality that's been there the whole time, and you can just walk out of it. So it's kind of like Jim Carrey just kind of like taking himself out of the equation of like the false reality that he's been party to this whole time. And it's just this one
Hmm.
glorious scene of acting, which he barely speaks, but it's just really great and really soulful. Where Kristoff, for the first time, he speaks to Truman, and it's this big moment. And basically, it's kind of like the off. It's kind of like the moment from the Batman animated series episode "Perchance the Dream." It's a lot. It's a lot like like the whole like I could have given you any life you wanted. It's kind of the offer of like do you live
Yeah,
the lie or do you accept the cold dark reality? In this
and
case, the uncertain it's less cold and dark here. It's more of the uncertainty and the risk of reality.
now I don't think the thing that I really like about this scene is that like nobody I think ever is worried that Truman is going to go back into the show. Like I was never worried about that happening because he's fought so hard this whole movie to escape.
It would have been
Like
disingenuous if he went back.
yeah, exactly. If they ended it that way, I would have it would have wrecked the entire movie. But obviously he doesn't. But you're still you're still wanting him to say something, right? And the last words he says to Kristoff, being his catchphrase. He delivers it to him one last time and gives his final bow. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and walks off is just absolutely top notch.
Just him like
One of my
demanding that he
top
say,
5 favorite endings of all time.
just demanding that he say something. Like everyone's watching you. What are you going to say to him? And it's the perfect response. It's full circle. It's like the first line he says in the whole movie. Well, sorry, not the. I mean, it's like the first it's the first like when he walks out into the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. I mean, sure, his first lines were "Good morning," but
Yeah,
his catchphrase, his first repeated line, if you will.
yeah. So you're right. Just him taking a bow and just saying that smile and just like with ease, he just walks into the uncertainty, and it just with a smile on his face. And just, I love the idea. It leaves the audience wondering. We don't need to see what happens next. I'm sure it's like legit. It's here's the in reality,
Yeah.
it's probably a very awkward situation where he just kind of walks out into
Well,
the world.
yeah. Look, there's been a lot of like talk about would it be interesting to see like a Truman Show sequel where, but I don't think it would be entertaining. Like I picture in my head that he teams up with Sylvia and sues the crap out of the TV show, but he's obviously going to be recognized everywhere he goes from now on, probably for the rest of his life. He's definitely like even a relationship with Sylvia, he doesn't even know her all that well. She was fighting for his rights as a person, not necessarily because she was in love with him. She didn't really get a chance to even get to know him. Like, if she's single, I could definitely see him and her going out. Like, I don't think that's off the table, but it still is a hard life that he's going to have to live every single day where everyone will know his name and he's in a world that's unfamiliar. But I think he'll live a comfortable life, sort of thing. But it's the thing where he steps out of our view, he steps off the show, and we don't get to see anything of his life anymore because it's none of our business anymore. I love how it just goes to the people's reaction. The Sylvia is running down the stairs because she's a woman of action. She's like, I'm gonna go see him, I'm gonna go find him, I'm gonna fight for him. We see everyone else is just happy, and then the perfect last line, what else is on? Yeah, yeah, get the TV guide. Boom.
Which that's
Because
the
that's what
fickle
people are.
nature of
We can
it.
just, yeah, we can celebrate for that moment and everything, and our mind goes to what's next.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's again, what else is on? That's at the end of the day, we will go through these amazing strides in like event television or like big moments. I will watch the end of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. And I'm gonna wonder like, well, that was amazing. Oh, what am I gonna move on to next? I guess Mad Men. It's just something like
Well, not even just that, just events in the world.
yeah,
Like huge things happen, and and then after a while, after you've processed the whole thing, you're just like, okay, now what else is on? It's just human nature.
yeah. As far as like, look, I want to be clear. I know how this is going to sound. This is going to sound like, oh man, he never shuts up about Jim and Andy. But in all seriousness, it does to me. Right now, we're in an era where we keep engineering like sequels and continuations and this and that. Deeg and I lately we've been kind of talking about this. It just feels like we shouldn't be afraid of like just like something quality and short. Like the ET holiday commercial. The thing where they did the Xfinity did like this little basically what the best thing you could ever imagine an ET sequel being in like 5 minutes, which didn't destroy anything, didn't like completely like tarnish anything. It was there was a practical ET puppet. Henry Thomas came back. Everything, all the pieces were there. It was like 5 minutes, and it felt great and it felt cathartic and it felt like this is kind of where you would imagine they would be. But again, it's like 5 minutes. So worst case is just 5 minutes of your time that may or may not tarnish like how you feel about a sequel, and it didn't. So it sometimes it makes you feel like perhaps we could do something more experimental, more short form versus like engineering. Like, okay, so we want to do more of this, and to do more of this, we have to like spend like the first first act or the first 30 minutes of the movie explaining, well, here's where everyone is now. And we get Beetlejuice and stuff like that, where it's not that that movie didn't have its good parts, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through. And the problem is, the stuff I do like in revisiting those characters, we have it, but then we have all this excess fat that we're stuck with that we could easily trim from the movie.
Well,
It's
the
like,
problem is that this movie caught lightning in a bottle at the exact right moment. Like, you try to do this movie nowadays, and it doesn't feel like it's telling anything new. It's just
yeah,
telling, what we're living in now.
yeah.
It told it at the right perfect time, at the dawn of reality television, and the dawn and a lot of the stuff that it's predicted that people would be interested in has come true. But also, it came out in the perfect time for Jim Carrey, because it's not just like, hey, it's somewhat comedic and it's somewhat funny of a performance, so let's get Jim Carrey.
It's
There was
someone
no
who is what?
bigger actor in the world at that time,
Yeah.
right? Like, there was nobody huger, so there was nobody like it's the perfect decision to choose him, because he was the person that was on everybody's mind and everything. So to play a person that's constantly being watched and monitored and doesn't feel in control of his own life at that moment perfectly is him living his life. To me, it's just like casting Michael Keaton in Birdman. It feels like it was the role that
Mm-hmm.
was perfect for the character
Exactly.
and the actor together.
So what I was getting at is, like, the only thing I could ever imagine in revisiting the Truman Show, believe it or not, is kind of, again, I know it's going to sound very much, well, you already have that. It's called Jim and Andy. But seriously though, the end of that documentary, in general, that documentary is, Jim Carrey doing the talking head thing, when kind of the enlightened version. Other part of me does wonder, like, what if it's like an older Truman Burbank just years later being interviewed about, so, again, the whole movie's built around the interview with Kristoff is like a huge center point in the movie. Like, what if we had an interview with Truman years later? We don't even need to worry about bringing everyone back. It's just, it's like a short thing. It's like you just talk about him and talk with Truman, and him just kind of weighing in and just having kind of it's kind of it's kind of like an ex-child star kind of a thing, just kind of like talking
Mhm.
about, like, yeah, so this messed up thing happened to me, and and then having just kind of weighing in on the state of the world and media and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. And maybe throw a little bit like good afternoon, good evening, good night there or something. I don't know.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see, like,
I
hear
want to
him
clear, it's
talk
not
about, like,
necessary, but
did he run into Marlon's actor again outside, and how did that feel
that's the
to,
thing.
like,
I would
see
love to see
somebody?
that explored in like a kind of a conversation where it's just pretty much just him talking about these things, and we don't need to see the reconciliation. We don't need to see these guys. It was just him like kind of saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, I met Marlon." Just. See, I'm pitching the most boring
Or
version of any Truman Show continuation. I know this. I'm aware of this fact, but I'm just
it's the perfect thing when it comes to a movie, if it leaves you wanting more but not needing any more.
yeah, absolutely. So all that said, just again, Truman Show has like one of the perfect endings. It really does. It hits it, it nails it, and just also talks about kind of the medium itself. It's just it's chef's kiss.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Leslie, before we head out here, is there anything else you want to say about the movie, or like that we didn't talk about, or
Well, you know, I kind of wish that like I know not every movie needs this kind of thing, but I really like when I heard about how the different other actors like wrote a backstory for their characters, because like Marlon's actor never says any of the backstory that he made up, but I always when he said it in like the interviews, I feel that type of character in the performance. And so I don't know, it's just such a revolutionary movie in my mind. It's something that can't be duplicated. Like, I remember, like, when Groundhog's Day came out, like, there's a million type of live the same day over and over again type of movies, from everything from action to horror to all over the place. But I feel like this is just something that you couldn't recreate without just being completely ripping it off. And it's I remember, actually, to bring up Groundhog's Day, I asked on my Shine of Faith, or sorry, on the Not, I asked on my page a while ago, and I asked this on Reddit because I thought it was an interesting parallel. Is if you could be stuck in either the Truman Show or Groundhog's Day, which one would you choose? Because both are kind of like the opposites. On the one end, you're the only one who knows what the reality is, and on the other end, you're the only one who doesn't know what the reality is. So I don't know. It was an interesting thought experiment, but yeah, I don't know. That's the best thing about the Truman Show is it gets you thinking. It gets you asking the questions of what it would be like if you were living like that. The decisions that you would make. Would you want to explore beyond, or would you be satisfied with just the perfect little life that was written for you? Do you think you would notice? And it's a movie that keeps you thinking long after it's over, and that's why I really, really love it.
Yeah. Oh, real quick, I just want to get this in here. I'm sure you may have heard about this at some point. So, Kristoff's backstory actually kind of confirmed what you were saying earlier, where he was thinking that Truman, that basically Truman was like his way of like giving Truman the life that he always wanted. Like he might be bullied and stuff. And originally, Ed Harris wanted to give Kristoff like a hump, like make him a hunchback.
Mm,
The
a
idea
little
is like
deformed.
yeah, basically give him like a little bit. Like I think kids probably made fun of him about, and then realized, Ed, I'm not sure about we want to do that. And there were like
Kids
discussions about
don't need anything to make fun of people, you know?
yeah,
They can make it up.
exactly.
Your
So
name
I
was
think
Kristoff. That's enough.
I think the idea still comes across though that he's building like the ideal life. Perhaps was like the idea for it, to some degree for Truman. That was that was in there. He absolutely he did, but it was like it's again with the God complex. It's like well he made paradise and they still wanted more. They wanted the apple of knowledge. They wanted more.
Mm.
Anyway, but yeah. So I guess to round things out again. The Truman Show again. I don't know. I love it when we see kind of like genuine emotion and pathos within Jim Carrey. I'm not saying it's not even there when he's doing his comedy, obviously, but it's I love that when we have like layers to the man, which kind of shows like in Liar Liar and The Mask, for example, we have like Stanley Ipkiss
Hmm.
that essentially is Jim Carrey's father. It's Percy Carey. It's kind of the soul of Jim Carrey and what he cares about in that character. It's very personal. Then we have like the duality of that, where you have like just kind of like all the comedy, just and the cartoony physics and the rubber face man. It's all in one character. Liar Liar has a similar dichotomy, but again, the gradation is getting more subtle in how we're mixing the characters, and then you have like all these other like the dichotomy is always kind of there with Jim Carrey. There's two sides of him. There's a dramatic side that, in general, I mentioned this a lot through the Jim Carrey month, is that I love it when we have a comedic actor doing drama because people don't really expect that
Hmm.
from them. And it's like the idea that, sometimes comedic actors make the best dramatic actors and vice versa, which, the Albuquerque verse and Better Call Saul demonstrated very well. And better, again, Breaking Bad as well. Bryan Cranston, great comedic actor, phenomenal dramatic actor.
You know, it's one of those things where like it's sad that we never really got to see Robin Williams and Jim Carrey play a scene together. Just
They were,
because like I like not that like I needed that, but it's just like it's one of those things where both of them have that ability, and Jim Carrey really only got like three cracks at it for the dramatic role.
yeah,
He has the Truman Show, then he got Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and then he has the oh, why am I blanking on it? My
you're
mind's
talking,
saying The Prestige, but that's not right. It's
no,
the
no, no.
movie, or the movie theater movie.
The Majestic.
The Majestic. Okay, it's not starts with a P. Oh yeah, The Majestic. Yeah, yeah, he had that one, and I like all three of those movies. The Majestic is a little bit by the book, but I love his
Man on the
performance
Moon
in
is
it.
kind of a fourth as well. I mean, you kind of have Man on
Oh
the
yeah,
Moon.
you're right. You're right. I mean, you're right. That one is it's a lean a little bit more to the comedic, but you're right. It's definitely a dramatic performance. I guess I should say he got four cracks at it then. But after that, they just nobody ever really recognized it. And then when you see him doing movies like Mr. Popular's Penguins or whatever, it's just like you can almost see a little bit of a pain in his face. He's just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, why didn't it work? Why didn't it work out? Why am I back doing this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, he gave his all, and there's sometimes there's, people don't, it sometimes just doesn't come together. And it's also really hard for comedians to break out in the show. Again, Robin Williams was like the anomaly. Robin Williams was like the big success of, well, you can do
Yeah.
both. And that's the thing, like Jim Carrey and Robin Williams are always like in competition with each other. I'm not saying directly in competition. I'm saying like in terms of like casting in Hollywood, they were like the two go-tos for we need like a comedic actor. And Robin Williams again, he ultimately had a little bit more. Like he was defined as having more range, so he got more of those roles. But it's usually like, okay, so for Batman Forever, we want Robin Williams is the Riddler, but no, we're going to go
Yeah.
Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Vice versa. Like Robin was pretty much up for every Batman villain. They always won for every Batman villain. He never ended up doing it. But
Let me tell you this: the last thing I want to say about the Truman Show, Jim Carrey should have been nominated. It's a mistake from the Academy Awards that he was not. I love how when he presented at the Oscars that year, he like joked about it. But it's a travesty that he was not nominated for the Truman Show.
absolutely. So Truman Show again, just very, very special, very much. It's a testament to a great performance on Jim Carrey, but also just a movie that just I feel kind of maybe cuts to the core of Jim Carrey dealing with fame, but also just how we again it's kind of our relationship to Jim Carrey as like a walking embodiment of like entertainment and stuff that's made us feel good over the time. And we see the comedy and we laugh with him, but also we just see him like we see him with the comedy stripped away, and we're still compelled to watch him or rooting for him. We were interested in seeing what he's doing, but again, it's like it's kind of the cycle of like we want certain things and yet the consensus doesn't. I mean, this movie did perform well. I want to be very clear. Critically, it did get buzz, and I want to say I think it made Jim Carrey money. I don't remember how it did financially per se, but it wasn't a flop. I know that much. But like Jim Carrey's got an appeal, he's got a following, and again, this is him still like the top of the fame where he can get away with this sort of stuff. And over time, it just kind of like the projects just kind of like went different directions. But he's and Truman Show is a testament. And it did shape the culture, and again, for better or for worse, it gave us more reality shows that went really leaned really heavy into how far they're going to take, like how fabricated things are. I'll say that much. But it's again, it's a movie that just is never lost its relevancy, and it's just a testament to the performer. So again, top marks on Truman Show. So we could be here all day talking about it. We have been here all day
Absolutely.
talking about it. So let's thank the folks for tuning in here. We had Code Geass Anime Fan, Teddy, Theme Park Priest, and Little Blue.
And make sure if you ever buy a lawnmower, you get one of those elk rotaries.
We won't see you, folks. Good evening, good
Bye.
afternoon, and good night.
We're still going.
Yep.
Well, I claim this land for Lazerdude.
Trumania. Good evening, good afternoon, and good night.
Well,
don't worry, folks. They'll send the searchlight on us soon.
Yeah, no, I guess we're just now forever recorded, just like
Truman.
Yeah,
pretty much, yeah.
Well,
so what else you want to talk about?
I don't know. Liberals won the election. Looks like.
Someone changed the channel.
We both left the studio at the same time. Well, no wait, it won't even turn it off that way. No, where's T? Where's it? Where is he?
It's a good question. So I guess we can talk about Truman all day.
Yeah, we said we could
It's
talk about it forever.
it's a 24-hour podcast after all. So the fact that the show's been on for 10,909 days, at least in the context of the show, before we really go anywhere, it is staggering that the show goes on that long. That's 30 years, man.
It doesn't seem like that much, that many days, when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's like when you look at like your Xbox profile or whatever, and it says that you've played one game for like a week, it's time altogether. It's just like, oh, really?
Yep. Yep. If Eli's in the comments, like I suspect he is, feel free to message Tiki and tell him additionally to cut the feed.
On the stream.
To put in Truman terms, cut the feed.
Pull the string. Oh wait, no.
Pull this. Well, yeah, it's Martin Landau. Well, Bela Lugosi, but also Martin Landau. All right. Well, we're about to see what happens. So again, I hope you folks have had a good time, listen to us, talking about Jim Carrey all throughout April. I mean, I think it's been pretty fun. Laser, you're Canadian. Have you watched any of our coverage of the Jim Carrey kind of love fest?
Honestly, I have not. Yeah. I mean, my excuse is that I have a kid, so I don't have time to watch so much stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm behind. Like I watched like 3 episodes of the new Daredevil, and then I'm behind. And then Andor's out, and I want to watch that, but I haven't started yet. And it's just like when you don't have the time. When you don't have the time, you got to make it. But oh well.
Yep. All right, folks. Well, I guess we're gonna. Lazy, I think we're just gonna have to do is we're just gonna have to cut the feed ourselves. We're just gonna have to both leave and just leave it at that.
But wouldn't it still be on Tiki's end?
Well, yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, I think that might actually be the case. So, oh boy.
Is there a way we could kick him, or is he the host?
Well, that's the thing. He's the I don't think we have an option for that. If we leave, we can't get back on. That's the behind the scenes, folks. Here again, it's just Tiki is he's left the simulation. So this is basically what the end. This is what the sequel for the Truman Show would be.
Wait, we're actually gonna probably just both leave it with like. Can we switch the graphic to the "Please Stand By" Truman Show graphic?
Yeah. Well, I guess if anyone has any questions about the Truman Show, they want us to talk about or reiterate, I mean, we're here to take your calls.
Yeah. Somebody answer the question that I asked before: Groundhog's Day or Truman Show? Which one would you rather be stuck in?
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Even though you're stuck into the small town every single day is the same over and over again.
Yeah, but I can crack some, I can crack the simulation a little bit. I can figure out things. I can learn a trade over the millions of re-ups that I get. I can learn to play the piano or something.
Fair enough. No, Groundhog's Day would be my answer.
You have more options of Groundhog's Day than you do the Truman Show. Ultimately, that's what it is. Truman Show, you're unaware.
But both days you can escape. But I feel like Groundhog's Day is harder because you don't know what would entail your perfect day,
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. Maybe Truman Show does have a little more appeal to it because you can, plus imagine this. Imagine you secretly find out that you are in a show and you work it to your advantage once you know. like, oh boy, I would really love to buy this new house, but I don't have enough money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
yeah.
too bad you can't like cut like edit the live videos, eh?
I
Because
mean,
if
I
this
don't
goes
think.
on, like if Tiki is like falling asleep at the computer.
That's absolutely what's happened here, but yeah,
Oh, Little Blue asks, "Were you guys not mind blown the very first time you watched the film?" Absolutely. As I said earlier in the cast, we just watched the movie again a second time.
yeah. I was. I mean, in terms of being mind blowing, I mean, I was more. Again, I was kind of lulled into the movie under kind of a false promise. I'm not disappointed what I got. I'm just saying it was a very interesting experience the first time I saw it. Like, okay, this is more deep than I expected it to be. I'm really
You
sold
were
on it.
expecting a silly comedy and then
Yeah,
got
that's what TBS sold me on. Like, you know, it's like
existential crisis.
basically they were selling me on Crazy Man is trying to convince people that he's in a TV show. That's essentially what it was going to be like. Look, I'm going to prove it, but in a more happy-go-lucky way.
Maybe they should make
That's what TBS did.
like a Truman Syndrome show where like a person's not on a television show, but now they've convinced themselves that they are.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to escape, but like they do stuff like they run a red light while they're trying to escape, and the police are chasing them down. They're like, "See, they're trying to stop me from leaving." Uh,
Yep. So how's life?
well, life's good.
So you're feeling better?
Oh yeah. Well, I had a different thing this week, this last weekend where my back went out on me.
Oh, really? Were you lifting anything
Yeah.
heavy?
No, I went on a bike ride. I'm at the age where I go on a bike ride and
Why
my
are you
back
riding
just has
bikes?
to
What's wrong
stop
with you?
working.
You should probably take a unicycle or something.
What? No.
Did you really said though you really are very anti-unicycle? Why are you anti-unicycle?
Okay, can you ride a unicycle?
Of course not.
That's why I'm saying no, because I can't ride a Do you think all Canadians know how to ride unicycles?
I wish all Canadians could ride unicycles. They can't. And you've just
No,
confirmed that
just the
fact.
Quebecers. No, I'm just kidding.
What about the French Canadians? You think they could do it?
Well, that's why Circus Soleil is from French Canada.
Yeah.
They got good balance over there.
Yep. So did you know Nathan Fillion is Canadian?
Yeah, he's from Edmonton.
Yeah.
They I don't know if they went through with it or they're almost going to go through with it. The Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion, like an art center of Nathan Fillion stuff or something.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Oh. Yeah, so I guess some of the great Canadians. We have Nathan Fillion. I love
yeah,
me some Tom Cavanaugh. Dear God, I love Tom Cavanaugh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox.
Oh, top of the list.
Uh,
So we have Michael J. Fox. We have Jim Carrey. We have Tom Cavanaugh. We have Nathan Fillion.
Mike Myers.
Yeah, he's there.
I mean, he's fallen off a little bit, but he's there.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, there was a golden period, and then it kind of ended. You know, it turned to brass.
Cat in the Hat killed it.
Yeah, yeah. I guess keeping things on topic with Jim Carrey. So you never saw Kidding, right?
No, I never saw Kidding. No,
Oh, you gotta watch Kidding, man. Kidding's amazing.
what's it streaming on?
Well, that's a good question. It's on Showtime, which I don't know, maybe through Paramount Plus you might be able to access it. So probably Paramount Plus because they do like the whole Showtime fusion thing. So I'd say check there, maybe.
Okay.
It's a chance at the very least it's on Showtime. So however you can access Showtime, it's there. But yeah, I mean, the good news is that the good news is that kidding, kidding. It does have an ending. They wanted to come back for more, but at the very least, they lucked out in that the show definitely has an ending within 2 seasons. Because the first season ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, but it's great that it has like a full story there. I mean, two kind of like season two kind of improves upon season one. It's kind of this. Basically, season one, I love season one. I will stand by season one. Season two has the advent of they kind of trimmed out like a relationship plot line, like the son of Jeff Picarello, the Jim Carrey character, was he was like the only vaguely uninteresting part of the first season. Everything else I think was top tier, and we made his plot line a lot better and a lot more relevant to the overall story in two. So I think two really did improve in a grand variety of ways. So it's really, as a whole, very solid show. I mean, again, just the dissect all the ways it's brilliant. It's really good stuff. Like seriously, no one watched this. I mean, nobody watched it. And thankfully it's like on DVD, so I got the DVD, so I can I'll always have it. So I lucked out there. The
You
perils of physical
know,
media.
there was a show that I really enjoyed when it was on TV called, I don't know if you it is called Trial and Error.
Yeah. Is that the
It's
one
it's
was John Lithgow on that one?
Yeah, John Lithgow was in the first season.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically of a show of a murder takes place in this small town, and this lawyer from like New
Yeah,
York is
Nicholas
sent to,
DeAugust was the lawyer, wasn't
yeah.
he? Yeah.
And then anyway, and the town was just absolutely nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I asked my wife to get it for me for my birthday,
Mm-hmm.
and she did. She found the first season on DVD somewhere online. It's not streaming anywhere. It only had 2 seasons. It's very like one and done, forgotten about sort of thing. And so we watched it, we loved it. I was like, "Hey, there's a season two. You wanna see it?" She's like, "Sure." I'm like, "I'll just buy it on streaming." So I looked for it on streaming, and season two only came with a bundle package with season one. So she bought me season one, even though then I ended up having to buy it again off of streaming. So I mean, it's good to have like a physical copy, but it's like now I feel like, well, I should have just bought this to begin with.
All right, ladies, do me a favor. I'm gonna try something here, okay?
All right.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. But just like like keep the folks company for a minute, all right?
Okay. So just keep it going. Okay. Oh, let's see. What am I doing? I'm not really up to too much. I got to get back into doing reviews. Although I'm thinking of not doing too many like movies because I don't have the time to like watch the new movies and keep up with them. So I'm like, maybe I should just focus all my efforts on my animated look back because they're my most popular videos anyway. Like my regular movie reviews are getting only like 100 views tops. So it's like, maybe I should focus on what people are actually wanting to watch. But they just take so much work that it takes a lot of motivation to do it. When you have a kid, you have no motivation at all. So I'm just venting out into the space because Takey's asleep. Uh, oh boy.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah, no.
we could just shout at Tiki, but I don't think it's gonna. I've tried that before. It doesn't really work because
Uh,
someone's a heavy sleeper.
is there a song he really, really hates?
Uh
It's a small world after. No, he probably likes that one.
yes. I'm trying to remember what song he doesn't like. I don't know. But we can't. I don't want to risk singing songs, or else they're gonna, we don't want to sing songs
Oh
on
yeah,
here.
we don't want to de-street the.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, boy.
well,
All right, well, folks. Unfortunately, I think we're just gonna be here forever at this point. So I apologize to you folks. You know, watching this embarrassing non-ending, but
This is the
That's right.
complete opposite of the Truman Show ending. Not as
Yeah,
satisfying.
yeah, that's the thing. So we're just gonna cut the feed and it'll go on forever. So I don't know what we're gonna do after this. So hopefully,
I think
I
you
don't
can
know
use
that.
YouTube to edit it, right?
I believe so. I think we will have that option. I think they probably took like the live chat away anyway, and like when the shows are posted. So I think that either way, it's still probably going to be the same difference. So we're going to see what we can do, folks. But just in case, thank you for tuning in. And sorry it kind of ended this way, but you know, by all means, keep each other company in the comments for as long as they exist. I guess here. I mean, I guess for the next probably 7 hours, but
Depends on how good of a sleep he gets,
yeah. I mean, look, I want to be clear too, look, folks. We could actually talk about the Truman Show this long. We already kind of talked about everything chronologically. That's the thing. So I
If
mean, we
we
really,
knew we had this much time to work with,
yeah.
we would have
I mean,
gone detail by detail.
yeah. That's the
Like how
thing. Had we
like
known,
how Marlon starts unstocking the vending machines when Truman is talking to him so he could, like stall for time,
yeah.
stuff like that.
Okay, Little Blue. No, we can't. We can't bring you on for a couple reasons. The main reason being, like again, Tiki has to click the OK button, so and he's on sleepy by. So even if we wanted to, we couldn't bring you on right now. I'm afraid. You know,
Hey, even Tiki, when you listen to this, don't worry about it. Like I was falling asleep during work today, so like, fortunately, I wasn't live on the air, so it
yeah,
didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, we all have or underslept, so
yep.
it is what it is.
Well, the good news is you're not hearing him snore, so
I guess I'll sign off, and thanks for everyone for listening. And yeah,
All right, folks, take
that's it.
care and enjoy the sleeping Truman graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah. See you, folks.
Bye.
Bye.